Behind every mask is a person in costume, but behind every social mask is a truth that we are afraid to show. We play roles: perfect partner, strong survivor, flawless professional. Yet each mask hides the raw, authentic self longing to breathe. The real question is, what are you hiding? And what would happen if you took the mask off?
Woo.
Yeah, good stuff right there. My name is Michael Perry, and I'm joined today by Justin Gates. And this is the new Ashla Podcast. Hello and welcome to the new Ashla Podcast. We decided to get in the theme of October and do some Halloween-themed episodes.
Spooky.
And we thought
season.
Spooky season. Yeah, I thought
what's
Mask
weird?
was a perfect one.
I seen something today that kind of threw me off. That the old Spirit Halloween stores are going to have Christmas stores now too.
What?
Like 30 of them. Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, it makes sense.
Are you gonna have a giant Santa Claus like jump out and scare you, or I don't know. I don't know. I don't think they're making any of them near us, but I would love to kind of see one. Hopefully they'll like post a video or something where I can see what it's like inside.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be elaborate.
Spirit Christmas.
The spirit of Christmas. There we go. It fits.
I suppose.
So social masks. You know, this is something that we talk about in different layers. We talk about how we have personas. We talk about how we try to hide away our insecurities and put on these masks when we go out in public. But, man, the nature of these masks are so profound and deep. I always picture the masks as having, like, roots that go inside of us because it's so difficult to remove it.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't until we started the work that I even realized I was wearing social masks.
Yeah. Back in the day, we used to call them hats. Everybody wears 1,000 different hats.
Oh, yeah.
Like, for example, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a friend, I'm a brother, I'm all these different roles. But I'm also sometimes a nurse. I'm also sometimes a protector. So we used to call those hats or roles, which still apply. You can still be authentic within the different hats that you have to wear, because it doesn't matter if you have kids or not, it doesn't matter if you're married or not, it doesn't matter. We all wear these different kind of hats depending on what's going on. But mask, that's a whole different thing, because we wear hats, we're still not hiding, right? We're just, today I'm a mechanic, or tomorrow I might be a plumber, But
yeah.
I love the title that you gave this episode. The scariest mask is the one you never take off, because that is so true. So, and look, we've talked about masks before. We all wear them from time to time. And not all masks are bad, because some are just harmless, right? Like a polite smile to somebody when they look at you or they smile at you, right? Even if you don't feel like Heather was badgering me today about this, okay? About how I never smile and how I'm very unapproachable because I don't smile a lot. But I do smile at people. If they smile at me or if they make eye contact, that's more of like a social thing that we do here. People in Europe, and they think it's strange. They think we're crazy or something that we do that, because those people never they never smile. They're very stoic. But
right.
Some of these masks are harmless, and I would say like the polite smile at a grocery store, or when someone asks you how you're doing, oh, I'm all right, or I'm doing fine. Doesn't matter how heavy life is right there. We're right. We don't really want to get into it with them. I think those are more harmless, because really, again, these are just kind of social contracts where, because people asking you how you're doing most of the time, they don't actually care. They don't want to know, because they've got stuff going on too, right?
Right.
But the kind of masks we're going to be talking about today are like you said, the ones that kind of root into you, and they're really hard to take off, and they go much deeper. And these are more than masks. They become identities that we build to survive, or to some of us to deceive, to do all these other things. So, but oftentimes we wear these masks that become actual identities. I said in the other show, I think the last show we did, Heaven and Hell, that we isolate and we do things because we don't want to present our wounds. We don't want to present our vulnerability. We don't want to We don't want people to, hear the things that are going on with us, right? Especially if you're
Right.
one of those archetypes that are like you're the hero. You're always there for everyone. You're Mr. Nice Guy. You're the yes man.
Yep.
Always putting everybody else in front of you, no matter how much it's actually killing you and crushing you. And these things suffocate us down to the level of our souls. So we talk about, at the core of our path is mysticism, but all these things are bridges to different things. Psychology, science, theology, sometimes
Yeah.
physics. But what we're talking about today really starts to fall into the realm of psychology and philosophy. Really, that's where psychology
Yeah.
came from, and we call those personas, right?
Yep. Exactly. I love how you were describing it right there, because when we develop these masks, these ways we show up in the world, we show up because it's what has gotten our needs met. And we don't think much beyond that. We just, hey, if I'm happy go lucky all the time, that has gotten my needs met. I don't need to question this because
Right.
life is flowing naturally. And realistically, these masks don't really rear their ugly head when we notice them until all of a sudden it's not getting our needs met.
Well, yeah, or if the world is literally on fire for us, or
Yeah.
if we're in a deep pit of despair or disconnection, as we talked about in our last episode. You
Yeah.
know, we, and I know we've talked about this before, but it's just I don't know if it's how we're built, or if it's how we're domesticated, or if it's just the way our societies have developed. But most of us don't see clearly, or see the light, as it were, until we've hit the bottom, rock bottom, right?
Yeah.
And we put on these masks and we create these personas because it could be lots of reasons. We feel like we want to be more accepted, or we want to be admired, or we want to be unharmed, or whatever. So sometimes it's like, the old saying, you can't polish a turd, right? But we polish and we polish and polish, and we put this front out there, and to show the world who we are, really trying to show them who we are. But when we have these masks and we have these fake personas, really we're just hiding from our shadow, I believe.
Yeah. One of the thoughts I had when I first started diving into psychology was you learn about the true self and the ideal self. And often, the further the gap between who you ideally want to be and who you authentically are, the more of a gap in self esteem and confidence and self worth. And I feel a lot of us with social masks have this bad tendency to try to become this ideal self, this extreme ideal self. And so our mask will try to match this unrealistic expectation.
Right.
And it starts wreaking hell in our lives because we can't hold ourselves to that standard. We're trying to be Captain America, and we forget he's a comic book character.
I was just going to ask you, has this escalated throughout the last 50, 60 years? Because we have a lot of different forms of escape media stuff we can go to.
Yeah.
I know everybody, if you watched the shows before, our earlier shows, in the background, my Captain America shield and, all that. I'm obviously a fan of comic books. And, there were a lot of things. And you and I were just talking about yesterday, some media that has shaped how we developed.
Yeah.
Yours was Dragon Ball Z. Mine was comic books. But, I think there is a point where, as long as you can separate fact from fiction or real from fantasy, and you have a healthy distinction there, I think you can emulate a lot of good things from these,
Yeah.
I mean, you can, but at some point we start crashing together and we have trouble telling the difference because of things like, again, things because we want people to approve us. We want approve of us. We want to avoid conflict or judgment, or so and again, I think this goes back to whether or not we're consuming these things, whether or not it has anything to do with how we were raised, or the environment or the culture we grew up in and stuff. Something along the way, some of us escape this or miss it. We don't these things don't crash together, and we have this kind of natural immunity to blurring those lines because you take the random 5-year-old kid who puts on a cape and they're Superman,
Yep.
right? And sometimes they jump off of stuff and
Yeah.
get hurt. They learn a lesson that way. But then others will see, and I don't know, we can probably get into this as we go along, but I'll just kind of ask you this. What is the difference between those of us who don't jump off of roofs with capes at 5 years old and those who do and learn the hard way?
That's a good question.
I know.
You know, it's all about how much we embody the identity of something that isn't us. You know, it's one thing to run around pretending you're Superman and feeling like you are, and there's another to believe you are Superman and over-identify with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which again,
there's definitely a good balance there somewhere. I seem to have found it, and you did too, for the most part, I think. We took we emulated the realistic parts about this, and of course, now that I'm an adult and I'm a really old, I see
Whatever.
I see the movies now, and they're made for kind of a older genre, an older demographic, and I get to see Captain America do grown-up things, and it's, it doesn't bother me because I'm like, well, yeah, that's what grown-ups do. Captain America's a grown-ass man. This is what he would do. Of course, he does it much more gracefully, and he does it much better than I could. But I never really deluded myself to say, yeah, and I was left to my devices a lot. I consumed a lot of this, what people call now this, this escape media, this escape stuff.
Yep. I was the same way growing up.
Yeah.
Well, I think for what you're referencing here, the big difference is, because I see this, there's plenty of people I know who Dragon Ball Z was their favorite show growing up. And it's what values did you take away from these characters? For me, it was hard work, perseverance, do the best you can for those you love. But you see some people who are like bodybuilders. It's like, I want to be like Goku and get jacked. And that's their philosophy, is to push hard to get in shape. And that's the only value they took away from this character. And then, going back to that Superman analogy, one kid running around, I'm going to save the world. The other kid, I'm invincible. Let me jump off a roof.
Those are good points. Those are good points. Not that someone getting jacked in a gym, there's anything wrong with that.
No.
As long as they understand their limits. There's an axiom for that. There's a couple axioms for that talk about, making sure that we are at least meeting reality where it is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I kind of took us off on a side road there, but the truth is, every one of these masks that we are talking about, and every one of these assumed personas that we create that aren't realistic, that comes with a cost. It comes with a cost, and you can't armor your heart and still keep it fully alive. You can't encase yourself in all of these costumes and all these different personas and all these different things and expect to have a heart that's authentic, because you just cover and cover and cover, and eventually you're walking around like the knight in rusty armor, which is, I keep saying this, but we need to do a show about that. But we did a show.
Well, and one thing I just want to add to this tangent is you were talking about how the last 20, 30, 40 years, this has been on the rise, these characters and all that. Well, I think one of the things that's been most detrimental is with social media. People get to put on these masks and say, look how perfect my life is. Look how good I have it. I don't have any issues. And a lot of people, consciously or not, soak that in, and they feel they need to be the same way. They feel I'm getting a fight with my spouse every other night. These people seem like they have it perfect. They don't see the ugly that goes on behind those posts or those photos.
And
that
know them.
adds,
like sometimes the people that like them, you see them every day, and it's not like that. So,
no.
You can't keep covering yourself, because eventually what you tried to build around you was protection. It just becomes a prison. And this path isn't about building prisons or walls with the stones of our lives. It is about building bridges, right? So how are our ethos going to tie into this today? Well, lots of different ways, but there's just a few that I'll mention. Love calls us back to being authentic.
No.
You can't fully love yourself or others if you are hiding behind a disguise all the time, or many disguises, right? Truth is probably the biggest one, going to be the biggest one today, right? Because we're talking about breaking illusions and calling our beings back into alignment with who we really are. of course, I went through this just like everyone else does. And I can tell you that once I realized who I was authentically, I actually thought that guy was cooler than all the personas and all the masks and all the stuff I was wearing, right? It was,
Yeah.
I'm like, I like this guy better. It feels better. I'm in alignment with who I really am. And, people will say, when you're somebody who is authentic and you don't actually give a crap what people think about you, you're just doing your thing and you're not, you are in alignment with your heart and your mind and your soul, you start to stop caring what people think of you. That seems to be a sticking point in this topic we're talking about today, because I know a lot of people who want to be authentic, but they still care too much about what people think. So integrity calls us and demands that our inner self, our authentic self, our true self, match our outer self, our outer face, right? We cannot live in disguise for long. You want to talk about comic books? Let's talk about comic books again. How often do our favorite heroes, the ones who hide behind a disguise, how often does that cause problems in their life, right? I mean, a lot. The ones who don't hide from that, they don't even, it's not a thing for them. It's not like a big sticking point in their life. It doesn't create any drama for them. So really our goal is to match our inner and outer selves, right? What we feel, what we think, what we know is what we do, what we say. We do what we say, these things. This kind of thing, as we're going to find out today, is that our connection cannot flourish if we're not presenting authentically. It's just another way of disconnecting. And with that disconnection comes suffering. So
one of the most beautiful things on this journey I learned is it's like the more you're learning to be authentic with people, the people you love and care about, especially, that's mainly who I'm referring to, you start showing that vulnerability, you letting them know when you're having a bad day, what's going on. The more it tends to foster respect and true, authentic, genuine connection. My connections are better than they ever have been due to the vulnerability of not trying to present myself as something I am not.
Yeah. And there is an axiom that hits the target. I mean, the bullseye here. And that is truth has no regard for popularity, right? If we're wearing a mask to hide who we are because we're afraid, that's not truth. So you have to get to a point where your authentic self, in this axiom, your truth, who you are authentically, is not bothered by popularity, not bothered by what people think. It's not bothered by. If you're not hurting anybody, if you're, doing your authentic work out into the world, you're following your purpose, your plan, your path, and you're doing it truly and honestly and authentically, who cares what anybody else thinks? On this path, and you and I talked about this before the show, we were talking about kind of the difference between theological beliefs and spiritual, right? That realm where this one feels a little more free, this one feels a lot more dogmatic. It's just about being who you are. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, who cares what people think?
Yep.
Right?
So here's a question for you. We talk a lot about the shadow and how it manipulates how we show up in the world. What is the difference between these personas and the shadow?
Well, the shadow is real.
Yeah.
The shadow's a real part of you. And you must not. There was a discussion today over one of the groups that you and I are members of, and they were talking about turning away from the shadow. Well, we don't teach that here. No. The shadow is a part of you. It's the part of you that's trying to flag you down, trying to get your attention so that you can give it attention and integrate. When you're wearing these costumes and these metaphorical costumes and masks, it is in an attempt to turn away from that shadow, because that shadow, reveals a lot of hurtful and ugly things about you. And none of us like, being that or having that, but we all have a shadow self.
Yeah.
But it is a part of you. So that's the big difference, is that one is real and one is a construct that you keep building to protect yourself from part of yourself.
Yeah. That's a perfect answer.
I try.
So when it comes to these masks, usually they have a specific purpose that helps us show up in the world. Often it's to avoid the vulnerability, the desire for approval, and for many, it's to avoid conflict and above all, judgment.
Yeah.
And I think so many of us are so afraid of judgment. One thing I've been really fascinated by learning in psychology is how when we judge ourselves about something, it makes it so difficult for anyone in our lives to try to help us with it, because any type of constructive commentary will come across as a judgment and will just trigger our shame through the roof.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And depending on where we wear a different mask, you know. If you're not confident in yourself, in your work, you might put on this mask at work, where you're presenting as someone who's competent and polished and, you know, the best worker ever. But inside you're like freaking out and you're anxious and you're stressed out because you're not coming at it authentically, truthfully. In relationships, we want to, especially if you're one of those people pleasers. I know I said that like derogatorily. I didn't mean it like that. But if you're a people pleaser, you put on this perfect partner mask, right?
Yeah.
You're always agreeable, and you're always selfless, and you're always endlessly patient, even though it's freaking wrecking you inside because you need to say something.
Guilty.
Hey, listen, you're not. I know. You know, married to one.
Well, and one other thing with that, like, I mean, Allison and I have worked so hard cultivating conversations around this because as we talk about these masks, it's not as simple as just, I see there's a mask on me, let me take it off. There's this game. It's one of my favorite games that has ever existed. It's Persona. And one of the variations, one of the ways you access your persona is you have a mask on. You have to take it off. When you take it off, it literally removes the reflesh on your face. It is just like that. It is excruciatingly pulling every time it feels uncomfortable, trying to push through and be what is not that mask.
Right.
And just, I want to put that out there that this is practice, practice, practice. I am still learning to do this. Like I said, Allison and I have conversations where all of a sudden I realize I'm being in a pleasing place right now where I'm trying to accommodate, and it's like I need time for myself right now, and I can't be giving you all this time I'm giving you. And having that dialogue. And again, this is why authenticity is so important in relationships, because if someone loves you, they're not going to reject you or abandon you because you have needs, because your needs clash with theirs.
Right. And if they do, then it's time to reevaluate who's in your circle. I'm not saying one or two things, pay attention. Another one that I notice a lot is, the strong guy, the strong one mask that people put on.
Yeah.
Especially within family units, where you always have to be the fixer, you always have to be the provider, you always have the one that the rock that everyone can stand on. But even the strongest granite erodes and chips and folds over time. These things that we're doing to adapt, and we're doing to survive, and we're doing to avoid conflict. Again, these are prisons. You may put on a face for the moment, and I do this even today, and I'm the one saying all this, right? But they're momentary needs, they're momentary things. If I went to a call, I don't do this for a living anymore, but this happened to me more times than I can even count. I'd go to a call, I have to put on a mask that I'm here to serve, protect, and deal with the worst of the worst stuff that's happening in these people's lives. Do you think I wear that mask everywhere? No, because that would crush me. Nobody was meant to carry that kind of thing around all the time, right?
Yeah.
But they can be useful. But again, we're talking about these things that take root, take hold, and they start to corrupt our souls, our authenticity. So again, we have to be careful about how much control we give and how much protection we actually need. So I was talking to, I don't know if you were able to listen to the show yet or not, but the show I did with Brenda on energy.
I have not yet.
So there was a point in the show where I asked her, we were talking about energy vampires, and I asked her, I was like, so what kinds of things can we do to protect ourselves, right, or to negate these effects? And she said, you know what? I've gotten to a point in my life where I don't feel like I need protection. Well, that's somebody who has reached a level of growth that she gets it. She gets it. She understands that to put on armor over and over and just stack it up is to lose her part of herself. And I was like, yeah, that's the answer right there. Do we need to be cautious? Do we need to do things to negate the kind of risks that we may run into in the world? A little bit, but we can't just bury ourselves in armor. We just can't do it, because eventually, what was useful in that moment to protect yourself, if you let it stack up, or if you sit in your armor for too long, it's going to get rusty and you can't get out. You're going to be stuck. It's going to become a prison. This is why we need to do that show on that book, the Knight in Rusty Armor, because it's a perfect book for this topic that we're talking about today. Yeah.
Well, I think one thing to Brenda's point too, I mean, I could be off topic here because I haven't listened to the episode yet, is so I had to write a paper this week in ethics about cultural or social contracts, what we're talking about. And one of the things I brought up is it's like, when you're in these situations where people are sucking your life away, or they're not respecting you, your boundaries, or your needs.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of who do I need to become to handle this situation. It's what place does this person deserve in my life?
Yeah.
And creating that distance, creating those boundaries, because boundaries aren't for other people, they're for us. Boundaries are nothing but an alert system to tell us where someone belongs in our lives.
Right.
Because if someone is constantly crossing your boundaries, they need pushed the hell back, because you need to protect your peace.
Yeah.
At least to a decent degree. Again, we're not talking one or two off situations. We're talking, when someone is completely disrespecting to you and who you are as a person and what you need.
Yeah. If you come from a place of love, or you give this unconditional love, it reminds us that we are to be loved authentically for who we are. And if someone can't do that, then it's time to reevaluate. Again, who's in your circle? Everybody annoys everybody with something, right? There are things that your wife does. There are things that my wife does, that my kids do, my dog. Right now, she's annoying me because she won't sit still, and she's over here whining because she wants to go out there and go downstairs to where Grandma Jenny is and badger her for her food, right? But I love her anyway. I love her. I love the imperfections in my wife, only because I know that I'm not perfect, and I know there's things that I do that annoys the hell out of her. Look, I'll give you guys some insider stuff into my life here. I have a bad habit of when I come home. I don't know how you guys are going to take this, but I don't like wearing clothes. I hate wearing clothes. If I could do this show without a shirt on, I'd be so much happier, because I just don't like clothes on me, right? So I come in from work every day, or I come in from outside where I clothe myself to spare the peoples of the world of my bare chest. I love to, but as soon as I walk through that door, I kick off my flip-flops and I take off my shirt and I hang it on the banister. Right now, Michael, there's probably 38 shirts on that freaking banister right now, literally right now. And I know that annoys the hell out of her. And she'll say something every once in a while, and I'll say, oh, sorry, I forgot they were there. Even though I see them when I walk through. Look, it gets so bad that when I need to put clothes on to go back outside, I have to go to the banister to find the shirt I want to wear. It could be like my regular shirts or my work shirts. Doesn't matter. It drives her crazy. But she puts up with it because I put up with her. We have this mutual love for each other, this mutual respect. So,
yeah, that's freaking great.
But but the key to
there's
that
a difference of that being that, and then when people are really crossing your boundaries, coming at you, because yes, we are all imperfect. You got to love each other for our imperfections. There are definitely things I do that drive Allison crazy, but
lack of respect, right?
Yes.
Lack of respect is usually the one that, boundaries go up, the security alarms go off, you've crossed the line. And I hope that we can talk about this and work through it by talking. But you know what? I'm going to protect my boundaries in whatever way I have to at the end of the day. Yep. I posted because as I've taught you, and I've said this on the show, and throughout all my years of teaching, I've always said, better to be good than nice. Always better to be good than nice, because you can't always be nice and be authentic, but you can always be good, right? So I posted this little video clip. If you guys aren't following me on Facebook, like me personally, send me a friend request. I'll log you in there. But we have these boundaries because we're not just protecting ourselves, but in a lot of ways we are respecting ourselves also. I respect myself enough that I'm not going to let somebody disrespect me to a point. Now, again, most of the times it can just be like, hey, I don't like what you said there. It's not cool, whatever. Sometimes you got to shove them back through the boundaries. Sometimes you got to exile them from the kingdom, right? It goes from one side of the spectrum to the other, depending on who it is and whatever's going on. But, disrespect, that is the one. It's also one of the hardest agreements that we have to keep, because it's hard for us to respect people we don't like. It's hard for us to respect people who's hurt us. It's hard to respect people who deserve punishment. But the key to that is, it's only hard because we don't want to see the inherent greatness in all things created. All things under creation have inherent greatness.
Yeah. And no one's beyond redemption.
No one's beyond redemption. Even though that redemption may not come with our help. And that's fine too. We don't have to put up with things, you know what I mean? If the best thing we could do for ourselves first, is push them out, send them out into the wilderness, away from the city, then so be it. But yeah, disrespect is the biggest thing that people do to cross those boundaries. Can you hear her whining? You guys hear her whining?
A little bit.
She's so pitiful. You're so pitiful. You're not going to go down there and bother grandma. Yeah, you're not. You're stuck with me.
So what would you say when it comes to these masks? What are the repercussions for the masks we wear? Now, we've been talking a lot about what masks we wear, but what are, in the end, the consequences of these?
The dark side, yeah. Dark side.
Yeah.
When we don't take them off, they stop being shields or the things that we intended them to be, and they start becoming prisons. That's the big thing. And I know I've said that a few times, but it literally strangles you, robs you of your authenticity, robs you of your joy, robs you of life, living, loss of authenticity, right? When you worn a mask for too long, you start to forget what your real face looks like. I mean, not literally, of course, but when you keep telling a story long enough, you start to blur those lines between reality and fantasy.
Yeah.
And you start to lose trust with things that you really value, your core values, your core ethics, your core morals. You can start to literally lose your identity in totality. And then you just start performing. Everything's a performance rather than presence. That's a favorite thing I like to say, because I'd rather have your presence, rather you show up as you are, than to perform for me. I don't, these conversations we have, they go so well, and they're received so well because we're not performing. We're just showing up, right?
Yeah.
Here, we're present. Eventually, you get burnt out really bad, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Especially those who are trying to be the strong ones, carry the weight of the world.
Right. We all long for deep connection. Now, I keep referencing the show we did that on Heaven and Hell, connection and disconnection, but it's such a powerful thing. It's such an important part of our existence. If you do this for too long, you don't have those deep relationships anymore. You actually start to create really shallow relationships, or the opposite of the love we're trying to show, which is unconditional. You start to have these conditional relationships. You start to put expectations, unrealistic expectations on people, because well, if I can pretend to be something I'm not, if I can put on all these masks and all this safety equipment, right, then they should be able to do whatever I want them to do. But I'm not going to tell them what it is I want them to do. I'm just going to just need to read my mind about it, right?
Man, and it's like I've been guilty of that, those whole unspoken expectations.
Yeah.
But I love to say, unspoken expectations are just premeditated resentments.
Well, yeah, because they will become resentment. And the worst part is, your expectations were unspoken, but that resentment is not going to be spoken either. It's just going to, all of a sudden, one day, the whole world's going to just explode out. And you're going to be left going, what happened? What happened? Yeah. So those are the three I can think of. Burnout's pretty bad. You see that pretty often. But again, you become shallow. You lose your depth because you're not tapping into what is real inside of you. You definitely lose that integrity, right? A lot of people hear integrity and they think, well, integrity is just about having good character or strong character. No. Integrity is about wholeness, right? Not being two or three different selves, being whole inside and out. Yes, Your integrity is, your character is based on that. People with strong characters have strong integrity, but it's more than that. And how can you be truthful anymore? How can you love? How can you be connected? And at what point do you lose your respect for life? Your belief in the sanctity of all life, that greatness and inherent greatness in all things. Eventually that goes too. And then let's not even talk about the agreements, right? You stop respecting yourself, which turns out to be, which turns into disrespect for others. You stop exhibiting courage. You lose hope. So there's a lot of good reasons not to do this. But again, as in all things, this is not a judgment. It's an awakening. It is there is redemption to be had. You can take these masks off. You can come back to authenticity. You were born authentic. It's not like it's gone forever. We talked about building bridges and connecting. Just because you disconnect doesn't mean you can't reconnect. Of course you can. So, and these aren't judgments from me. I'm not telling you, well, if you wear a mask or you wear these costumes, then you're done. You're beyond saving, whatever. I don't think there's anything, irredeemable about you. It's just that now it's time to awaken to that awareness, to start to understand what's going on and start to work step by step back into authenticity, back into unconditional love and truth and wholeness through integrity, and bringing that connection back.
Well, when we get into connection, being vulnerable is so critical, because vulnerability is what allows us to take these masks off. Vulnerability is the key to this glue.
Yeah, it is. And really, a lot of us are taught that strength means control. It's not. In this application, control is what keeps that mask rooted into place. True strength is saying, here I am, I'm imperfect, but my integrity is whole. I must surrender to the truth. Vulnerability requires surrender. Just like
I think a lot of people, when it comes to control, don't even realize that's secretly what they crave. I know for me, if you would have asked me 4 years ago, do you care? Is control something you seek? It's like, nah. I am the furthest thing away from being someone who wanted control.
Right.
All to see that in my behaviors and in my actions and my interactions, all of it was tied with a need to control the narrative, a need to control perception, a need to control identity, because I didn't want anyone seeing me as inferior or lesser than.
Right.
Because that's how I saw myself.
And we come back full circle to your question about the difference between this and shadow, right? Because when you live like that, you are two selves, and you have no integrity. I'm not saying you're a bad guy. I'm not saying you didn't have good morals. Again, integrity means whole, right?
Yes.
When we think of it like this desk that holds my monitor and holds all the crap that I have on it that I have to clean off every once in a while, this desk has good structural integrity, which means it's whole. It's not broken. It's not separated from the other parts. If the desktop, if the glass was separated from the desk, it would not have integrity. It would not be whole. This is, what you're describing is, we don't operate in this duality. Even though the universe and all of creation has paradoxical dualities all over the place, and sometimes more than that. But those are just micro adjustments that happen in real time to keep the universe and all things in harmony, right? But when we are separated, when we are disconnected, when we turn away from our shadow and we don't have this structural integrity, we'll say, then we do have these problems. We can't be vulnerable. We can't surrender because, like you said, and then what we do is we start fighting with ourselves. It's almost like we're doing a lot of comic book stuff today. It's like the issue between the Hulk and Bruce Banner, right? They're always fighting.
Yeah.
They're always fighting, because, and then at some point they just turn to each other and they align. And then you have Smart Hulk, which everybody hates for some reason. I think Smart Hulk is fun anyways.
Right. He's now OP, but what can we say?
Yeah,
I'll debate that point.
So is Superman, but we don't complain.
So what is the power when we remove these masks? When we start integrating into our personas, we start learning how to switch these masks off for when we need them.
Yeah.
what are the benefits? We were talking about vulnerability is true strength. When we're able to show up vulnerably, we release so much weight from our backs. I think about the boulder I was carrying on my back most of my life because I never trusted anyone to hold its weight with me.
Yeah.
And the strength, the energy, the emotional wellness I feel now that I am seen for who I am and I'm loved anyway has been one of the most liberating experiences I've ever felt in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. The moment you come to the point where you're saying, I don't give a crap what people think of me. That's an amazing amount of freedom that opens up. I mean, it is. I can't even describe it in words very well, how liberated you become in your whole being.
When it gets you more in touch with your authentic self, which gets you more in touch with your purpose. Everyone's wandering around feeling aimless these days. Why? Because they're disconnected from authenticity, which then cuts them off from connection with purpose. We have so much potential within all of us. We all have strengths. We all have things that make us shine, but we tuck them away because we're so afraid of being seen that we ignore the fact that these things might actually be our calling.
Yeah. It's true strength to allow yourself to be vulnerable to yourself. It's true strength to surrender. Nearly every single path of light, religion of light, they all talk about surrender. They all talk about allowing yourself to surrender to the other part of yourself. These days we call it shadow work, right? Shadow work is important.
It's vital. I mean, it's when we start diving into why we do what we do, because it's one thing to not realize, hey, I don't talk about my problems. That's not going to get you anywhere. You got to ask yourself, why don't I talk about my problems? And that's what shadow work is. It is diving into the roots of these personality defaults we have. And it helps us address, okay, you know what? I don't talk about my problems because I did as a kid and I got in trouble for it. So now when I go to talk about my problems and I feel that trigger inside, that discomfort that's like, no, this isn't safe, don't do this, we can override it, we can stand firm, and we can talk about why we are the way we are. That's part of the vulnerability. I do shadow work with Allison all the time. Hey, I notice I do this. I'm wondering if this is what's causing it. And we'll dissect it together. We'll work through it, and we'll start coming up with strategies so that when that arises again, I can start retraining myself in mechanisms that are much more authentic and rooted in who I am today and not who I was at the age of 5.
Yeah. And there's an added benefit to what you're doing. You're performing the shadow work of your relationship too. Because just like with us, when we're divided, we're our shadow selves and our, this part of us. We're seeking to become one being with integrity. Well, the same thing is true about marriage or, romantic relationships. You're trying to become one in the relationship. You're still individuals, but you're still trying to become one in the relationship. So there probably is some sort of work to be done there, shadow work.
Yep.
Because you got two people coming from two totally different places, two totally different backgrounds, and they have to somehow blend, right? They somehow have to become, the relationship has to become one in the relationship. So you're killing two birds with one stone. Not bad.
Hell yeah. No, I'll take that. I never thought about it like that, but you're absolutely right. And it does help us as we work through our own shadow stuff. We know what to look for in each other, how to sort of give each other those nudges. Because like I said earlier, when you judge yourself and you hide it, it makes any type of constructive feedback as an attack. And for us, we can call each other out on our crap every day, and neither of us take offense to it because we know at the end of the day, the love has not changed and there is no judgment. It is just, I support you in your growth. Right. Let me help you grow more. And if you don't, I'm not gonna judge you for it.
Right. And then you get to go have fajitas.
Dang straight.
Right.
Those fajitas were so good the other night.
I bet they were. They don't know what I'm talking about because I cut it out of the last show, but Michael loves his fajitas.
Top 3 favorite foods?
He does fajita Fridays on a Monday.
Like a boss.
He's a rebel. So some of the other things, we become more courageous when we decide to start doing this. And we become more respectful to ourselves and others, right? Yeah. Kind of piggybacking off what you were telling us about the work that you do together. And you learn to be more hopeful and you learn to be more graceful. So those are some other kind of powers that you gain by doing this work.
Well, and I mean, when we talk about these masks, how we talk about how you can put them back on after you use them when you need to for certain situations. Mm-hmm. It is integration. It's not erasing these masks. It's not getting rid of them and condemning them. It is allowing them to exist in a way that no longer controls you.
Yes, that's the key. That
Yeah.
is the key. Well, I mean, and it's just like with our emotions. Emotions aren't bad, none of them, if you are able to control how much they control you. You know,
Yeah.
emotional intelligence. It's very important. But it doesn't mean we get rid of our emotions. That would be a horrible way to live, you know? And like you said, taking off the mask doesn't mean destroying all of the protective layers that you've built over the years, because sometimes these masks saved us,
Yeah.
right?
And they might still.
And they might still from time to time. It's just, like you said, it's not letting them take root, not letting them take control over
Nope.
every aspect of our life. This is moment to moment to moment. There's nothing wrong with having these things. That's not what we're saying. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because I guess sometimes when we talk about these things, we always come at it from like a, get rid of them completely. It's not
Yeah.
like that. It's not like that, because sometimes that was the only way you could have a brave face when you had no place to be vulnerable, or if you weren't feeling very competent, right? Or everybody was leaning on you because no one else could do it. This brings up a man. My nose is really itchy today.
I
This
keep having
brings
it with
up
my beard.
it's allergies. How can we still have allergies, man? It's almost wintertime. Welcome to Colorado, where there's allergies. Even when the plants are dead, there's still allergies floating around.
Yeah.
Um, this is why I don't like. I don't like the. I was going to say this earlier, but I forgot. I don't like the phrase "fake it till you make it." I don't like that phrase. I
No.
actually, write this down. Justin's going to quote Star Wars: "Do or do not. There is no try." I like that one better than "fake it till you make it." Right? And
Yeah.
here's the reason: because if all you do is fake it, eventually, and you let these things take root, they're going to cause you damage. Eventually, because really, you shouldn't fake anything. Because if you're faking things, you're not being authentic. But this integration is not erasing. And by the way, doing shadow work, people are afraid they're going to lose part of themselves. Oh, you're actually gaining the other half of yourself. That will help you. Trust me. I know it sounds counterintuitive to say embrace the shadow. What you're doing is aligning yourself into a whole being. You gain way more than you ever imagined. So these masks, when we wear them from moment to moment, depending on what's going on or depending on how we need to show up, from moment to moment, not all day, not every day, not all the time. Think of these as strategies instead of thinking of them as, you did something wrong or you're sinning or whatever. So, but the real work here, the real way to do this is to work on your awareness, to gain awareness and to start to use discernment when these things kind of trigger up. And this awareness to know when you're wearing this armor or these masks or these costumes because you choose to, not because you forgot to, take them off or go back to being authentic. And, another point I want to make is authenticity is not overexposure. You can't overexpose your authenticity. You can't. It's in congruence with your truth, your actual truth. It's the freedom to choose, again, to be present and not to perform all the time.
Agreed. It's about embracing fluidity. It's authenticity is not something that is overshared. It is congruence with your truth. It
Yeah.
is being able to show up in a way that you will never be too much.
Well, and again, if you are always being too much because people are saying you're too much, then look at your circle closely. This is why
Yep.
building that circle is important. It's probably one of the most important things you can do in your whole life.
Yeah. You are who you spend your time with.
Not building echo chambers, but building a good circle of trust. And that could be 30 people or it could be 3. The number of it doesn't matter. It's how those circles serve each other. And I know I've been saying a lot today that these masks and these costumes and stuff become prisons when we learn to, or we forget to take them off, or we choose to just leave them on forever and ever. So think of it in this way. Think of it as more of like a tool from moment to moment when you need it instead of a prison. But if you do keep it on too long, if you do create a whole identity around hiding, then it does become a prison. I just want to have that distinction there. So, and these are different than the roles that we play in our lives,
Yeah.
right?
Hats
Because
versus masks.
Yeah, because roles we tend to naturally just fill in those roles as we need to. And then I'm not a dad all the time, but in a way I am, but I go into dad mode when I need to be dad. But I'm not dad at work. because those people aren't my children, right? So
Yeah.
we seem to do better with roles than we do with mask for some reason.
Well, roles gives us an outline of what is the socially acceptable presence we should bring.
Right.
Like, I will not treat other women the way I treat my wife. That is the role I have with my wife.
Well, I mean, but you do treat them with respect, like you
Yes.
do.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's obviously discernment there. You're practicing discernment there. You don't treat them exactly like you treat your wife, but you do treat them in some ways.
Yes. Do you have any other thoughts you want to throw on this before we jump into our exercises?
Yeah. So I'll just restate this, that every time we put these masks on, there was a reason, there was a purpose for them, whether that was a way to navigate danger or to fit in or to fill a role, right, to survive. But again, if we're not careful, that mask that we created to protect us, shield us, can become a prison if we never take it off. Life invites us to move from this fear-driven hiding to truth-driven living. Truth-driven living. That's really hard to say. It sounded good in my brain. I just couldn't.
It's one of those tongue twisters if you say it 10 times fast.
They're all kind of crashing. But, the work of removing these masks and treating them like tools rather than prisons, it's not about reckless exposure. We're not saying just go out there and be reckless. If you feel authentically that you like punching people in the face, well, you probably shouldn't do that. And you should probably reevaluate why you want to punch everybody in the face. But it's about living with integrity, having that structural integrity of self, being whole, right?
Yeah.
It's about choosing love over fear, truth over the illusions, integrity over performance, presence over performance, connection over being isolated and hiding away, and honoring the sanctity of life, starting with your own. So, and when we dare to do this work, when we dare to integrate the shadow work, right? When we decide to wear these things moment to moment, but not be defined by them, we step into that truth, that light of truth. And you will create deeper relationships, and you will build stronger communities around you and better circles of trust. And you'll have that inner peace and that stillness that you can't fake. You cannot fake that. You either have it or you don't. So, let's be responsible with the work that we need to do. Let's be respectful to ourselves and others. Let's make sure we have grace with ourselves, because this work is hard. It's hard work. And be patient. As always, be patient with yourself. And if you're with somebody who's going through the shadow work, be patient with them. Give them grace. Be respectful.
It can be messy.
My call to action today is going to be this easy one. Take one small step today toward being more authentic. Pick one of your masks that you're ready to kind of pull off and take those roots out of you. Have one honest conversation with yourself. Let one true piece of yourself breathe. Because the scariest mask is not the one you're wearing tonight on Halloween. It's not tonight, but Halloween is the one you wear forever. And you were not meant to live hidden away. You were designed and created to be connected. So that's all I got to say.
Beautiful.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So now for our affirmative prayer. Let us close our eyes. I am safe to remove the mask. I no longer need it to hide behind roles or disguises. I am whole. I am worthy. I am enough. With each breath, I release the costumes that no longer serve me. With each step, I walk closer to my authentic self. My vulnerability is strength. My truth is light. My soul is free. Today, I choose authenticity over approval. Today, I stand fully as myself, seen, loved, and free. And so it is.
So be it, and so it is.
For our affirmations today, I am safe to be seen as I truly am. My worth does not depend on the masks I wear. Each time I take off a mask, I breathe more freely. My vulnerability is my greatest strength. I welcome authenticity over approval. For our exercise today, the mask and the mirror. Step 1, identify a mask. Write it down. Which one do you wear the most? The strong one, the perfect partner, the always happy friend, the achiever? Now next to it, write the situation or relationships where you wear it the most. Now ask yourself, What am I afraid would happen if I didn't wear this mask? Write down the fear as honestly as you can. Rejection, judgment, abandonment, failure. Step 3, meet the truth in the mirror. Stand in front of the mirror and look yourself in the eyes and say it out loud. I am more than this mask. I am safe to be seen. My true self is enough. Notice any emotions that arise within you. Don't push them away. Let them come up. Breathe through them. Be curious about them. Now replace that mask with authenticity. Close your eyes and visualize yourself taking off the mask. Imagine what it feels like to walk into the world without it. Is it lighter, freer, stronger? Journal one small action you can take this week that reflects your authentic self without the mask. Is it just that simple conversation of when someone's annoying you with something? Is it giving one of your burdens away to someone and giving that and trying to cultivate the trust so you don't have to keep carrying the weight alone? Now for a journaling prompt. If one of our masks was suddenly taken away without warning, what truth about me would be revealed? How would people around me respond? And how would I feel standing there unhidden? Would I experience fear, relief, freedom, or all of the above? Then add, what would change in my life if I no longer needed this mask? What would I gain and what might I lose? Thank you so much for joining us today. I highly, highly recommend sharing this with anyone you think could benefit from it. Please subscribe to our channel, like it if you're on YouTube, and thank you for being a part of this family. With love and gratitude, Ad Lucem.
Ad Lucem.